What's up, man?
Not much. What's been going on?
Not much, man. For bringing it back full circle. So I remember it's been, what has it been now, like 2 months since we did our first one of these that was cut really, really short.
Yeah, I think we were just we're learning so much. And then it seemed like we were just testing it out, see how it went. And I think some really good things came out of it.
Yeah.
I remember we had a really good conversation, gotten some great feedback from it. So I think definitely took too long to do another one, but I think it's good timing right now.
Yeah.
Where the market is.
Yeah. I think that part of the reason of like doing it again with you since those couple months, I've had a couple of different people that's been out of the market just to kind of just have a conversation and just kind of, you've gotten to know me really well over the last few years to where like I just like to learn wisdom from whoever it is to try to see, how can I implement that in my life to be able to just be a better me pretty much. And then, but within this 2-3 months, we've learned so much as far as not just podcasts, but content creation. And you're right, with the current market the way it is, I feel like that's definitely, helping us with, gathering more market share where we're at right now.
We're definitely in such a market that you are having to relook at things, right? You're having to relook at the way you do things, revisit it. We're in a market right now where you can kind of feel the tension in the air. You can feel people hurting right now because of the inflation. You can feel people hurting right now a little bit because everything's tight. And so I think that it's a good time to revisit everything, honestly. I mean, you have to look at how you do everything. We've been in such an order-taking environment the last couple years from a customer service standpoint that it's now we have to come full circle now to see how much value we can actually give to our clients and just relook at everything.
Yeah, I think right now is definitely a good time to set yourself apart by everything. Customer service, just content creation, social media, all different types of way, but you also have to set yourself apart, like literally apart from those people that are being negative, right? You hear misery loves company, and so many people in this market that are actually not even doing that bad. It's so easy to just start talking negative. So I think that us focus on the good, positive things over this last few months has definitely helped at least people like you and I.
I think seasons like this are good.
Yeah.
And the other day, it was a couple of days ago, I got to the office and I get there and my keyboard's not working, right? And I can't get it to work. I'm unplugging the USB and plugging it back in, and it's telling me error with the USB. And I look all around our office. We don't have any extras. And I'm like, well, I can't order one from Amazon. I can't have that immediate gratification from Amazon. So I have to drive. Best Buy's closed. I end up going to Office Depot. I go in there and it's all, old school, run down. It looks exactly the same as it did 20 years ago, I feel, when I go in there. And it brought back these memories for me of when I first got in this business. I remember going out on my own, basically commission only, and going to an Office Depot. I had probably had less than $1,000 to my name. And I spent $600 on that on a printer, phone, and a shredder, and a couple other small things, right? And it brought me back to that point in my life that I was willing to do anything. And over the time, it seems like a lot of those things that I was willing to do, I'm no longer willing to do right now for whatever reason. I don't know what it is. And it just got me motivated to go back and say, I'm willing to make any phone call, knock on any door, ask for business from anybody right now, because that's the market that we're going to, right?
Yeah.
Like we have to go back to those basics, but that's the question we have to ask ourselves is like, what are we willing to do when our back is against the wall?
Yeah.
Right? And do those things when it's not. Yeah. And that way you don't get your back up against the wall.
Yeah. And so you've been in the business now 20 years?
It'll be 20 years next summer. So 19
next
years.
summer. And I'm over here hitting almost 4.5 years, which still, I would consider myself still new in the business. And then you have those people that have been in the business, whether it's 4, 3, or they've just started. And would you not, I've had conversations with you, even whenever rates were super low, and I said, what's the lowest you've ever seen rates? And you told me like right now.
Yeah.
And then, so my question for you is like, what is the hardest time that you've seen in the 20 years? Is this the hardest time, or have you seen other harder times? Or
Well, again, this is something always to keep in mind, that the hard time you're in always seems like the hardest time, right? And so, yes, right now it feels like it's a very difficult time, just based on the fact that rates are up. When rates are up, in my experience, in my 19 years, it typically coincides with the market being up, the economy booming, those kind of things. This particular time, that's not the case. Rates are up higher, they spiked, and on top of that, stock market's down, relatively speaking, to where it was here in the last year or so. Consumer confidence is down right now. So it is kind of a little storm that we're in right now, but I feel we'll be coming out of it soon, but it is a tough one. To answer your question, obviously that 2008, 2009 crash was probably outside looking in, the hardest one. But here's the big thing. Those were years earlier in my career that I was super hungry. So it wasn't something that affected my confidence or morale in those years, because I was hungry. And that's the point I was making a while ago, is that you need to make the decisions to do what you need to do, regardless of what's going on around you.
Yeah. You said, you hit the nail right in the head when you said, every single time that you're faced with a hard time, it seems like the hardest time. And it made me think of kind of like, being at the gym and you're just starting out, and then let's say you hit a, 150 pound PR on bench, and then that's like the hardest that you've ever had to push because you've never gone that heavy. Well, whenever you get to 200, you're like, man, this is the heaviest I've ever gone to. But now 150, you look back at it and you're like, I mean, that's still kind of heavy, but I can, I could do it, however many times. And then you get to 250 and then you're like, whoa, this is definitely the hardest but all those hard times are making you a better LO, a better person, a better business person. So that's what's motivating me, because I feel like now I'm there where you were back in 2008, and you're right. I think that even though I didn't live it back whenever I was in the business, but it seems like there was a lot more actual data that was affecting people back then, as far as like, man, I can't afford to pay my mortgage anymore, and I can't sell my house because my house is upside down. That's inflation in a way. It's kind of sucks that we're going through it, but it's helping the values of the homes, and I think that in a way you can always look at the glass half full instead of half empty. Yeah,
that curiosity that is sparked by those difficult times is so healthy. What am I doing wrong? Okay. That sounds like a cry of desperation, but it's not. It's, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what can I do better? Like, what changes can I make? Those are super healthy questions for not only business, for you personally, for your family, for everything. You know what I mean? And I think that it's important to go through those hard times. To answer your question regarding having a hard time, that 2008, 2009 crash, which I don't think we're going to be in a crash, but that crash was fueled by the fact that anybody and everybody could borrow.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you fog a mirror, here's your loan. Right? Yeah. I remember 580, 560 credit scores, stated income available, all kinds of stuff like that you could do it. I would argue right now that it's actually harder guideline-wise for somebody to qualify than it was a year ago. So I don't think we're in danger in that area.
Yeah, which is great news, really. So within the same subject, so the last couple of days I've had, and I'm sure you probably have too, have probably had anywhere between 6 to 8 agents reach out to me, mainly from Keller Williams. I think they had a big sales meeting or something, and one of their brokers talked about assumption loans, like somebody assuming a loan. And what I'm, from what I'm able to, information that I'm able to give them, it sounds like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like though that type of loan and that type of product, if you call it a product, because it's not even something that we do, it's something that kind of whoever's servicing the loan, was more of a thing back then when people were like, I'm in hot water, I can't list my home, and I need to get out of it. Like, do you want to take my low rate? And then, so like, would you agree with that? Or do you think that people are truly, because it's easy to say like, hey, rates are 5-6% right now. Can I assume someone's loan that they had for like 3% or even 4%? But where are your thoughts on that?
I think loan assumption in theory is really cool. In theory, right? In practice, you're not going to see it that often, to be honest with you. The lenders, it's not going to be a super easy process because they do have to qualify the person again. There's going to be a lot of stipulations there. Also, keep in mind that the loan's case number stays tied to you. So, you know, something happens where that guy stops paying it, it forecloses, all of a sudden your KVERS is tied up, your connection with FHA loans and FHA connection is tied up. It's not going to be as common. And do I think that it's do I agree with Keller in the sense that I think it's a great conversation starter with the client? Absolutely. You know, once I get conversing with you about like, hey, you could possibly do an assumption loan here, and then they see the house, they like the house, and then now we're talking about, hey, how do we get into this house?
Yeah.
So do I think it's a great like tool to spark interest? I do.
I think that's exactly what I've been telling them. I said, even though, because one of the agents was like, you know, well, is there still a contract and all this? And I said, honestly, I'm not sure, but if there's not, let's say, or even if there is, I couldn't even answer you on if you still get paid a commission on it, because from what I'm understanding is that the person that's like given the loan to another person is giving everything away, such as like the equity and everything. So, but I told him, I said, but it's a great conversation for somebody that if you have 5 buyers, that's now 2 buyers because those 3 are scared of the rates. You can have that conversation to sound more knowledgeable and also kind of give them some hope as of like, hey, you know, is it okay if I still keep you on my list in case I come up with a borrower that's in really hot water and needs somebody to assume their loan? And at that point, you would be looking at a 2-3% rather than a 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think an assumption loan is more for, in my opinion, is more for like, say that we bought a home right now a couple years ago, got a 3% rate. My son's 11 right now. When he turns 18. It's not unlikely that rates are double digits.
Yeah.
And at that point, I would just hand down the loan to him and give him the property.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a family thing. But, you know, I'm sure there are ways to use assumption loans as a tool to be able to sell your home.
And with that conversation of, hey, using it to be able to just get your foot in the door, one person that I can think of that I've met one time, you worked with this guy back at your old company, and it's a guy that used a tool such as that assumption loan, such as it's a guy that the 2 or 3K loan guy, you know who I'm talking about. And so it's like he used that, and I remember the first time I ever met him, I said, man, how many 2 or 3K loans do you do? And he goes, not very many.
Yeah.
And because 2 or 3K loans are super hard to do. And, you know, people like, I remember when I was at the bank, we couldn't do 2 or 3Ks. And when I got over here, I was like, yes, we can do them. And now I'm like, no, I don't want to do them because they're so hard. Yeah. And then, but he used that to his advantage because he was out there pitching them. And then that's kind of what, you know, started his path to success. So what are your thoughts on the difference between your person that's like, let's say even the mentality of me being like, 2 or 3K loans, and then somebody that's looking at assumption